It was a cold February night in 1978 when Jack called. "We're heading to Chico for the game," he said, laughing. I almost went. I almost said yes. Instead, I stayed home, and his voice, cheerful, careless, stayed in my head long after the phone went dead. They were 5 good men: Jack, Bill, Ted, Jack Hewitt, and Gary. Kids who loved basketball and jokes, not trouble. They left in Jack's white Mercury, music playing, headlights cutting the dark. By morning, nothing felt ordinary. Phones rang, mothers wept, and the town filled with a quiet everyone pretended not to feel. Days later, the car was found deep in the snowy forest, doors unlocked, food inside, no footprints leading away. 5 friends vanished into cold and trees. I keep asking myself, why would they leave the road? Why go into that silence? That question has followed me ever since. The road to Chico was calm that night. Long stretches of pine, headlights sliding over silver guardrails. The boys had the radio on, laughing, arguing over songs. Jack drove steady, proud of his car. Gary leaned out the window, cold wind in his hair, shouting into the dark like a man alive for the first time. Bill kept score on a scrap of paper, teasing Ted about his slow moves. They didn't notice when the fog began to roll down from the mountains. It came soft at first, then thick like smoke, swallowing the road. Still, they drove on, missing a turn somewhere near Oroville. One wrong curve, one quiet mistake. The road changed beneath them, smooth pavement giving way to gravel and frost. By the time they realized how far they'd gone, Chico was miles behind. But the night was quiet, and they thought they could find their way back. They never did. The game in Chico ended around 10 p.m. The boys were in good spirits. Their team had won, and Gary couldn't stop talking about how perfectly the last basket landed. They grabbed snacks, laughed with a few students, and walked back to the parking lot under buzzing streetlights. The cold had sharpened. Fog hung low even in town. Witnesses said they looked happy. 5 friends walking toward their white Mercury, unaware that every step was leading them farther from home. They left Chico just before midnight, heading south, the wrong direction. Maybe they took a wrong turn. Maybe someone followed them. No one really knows. But something changed on that drive. The laughter faded, and for reasons no one can explain, they left the main road again, turning into the mountains where the night was silent and endless. That was the last time anyone ever saw them alive. The road climbed higher with every turn, the fog thick as smoke around the car. Jack kept his hands tight on the wheel, eyes narrowed on the dim white line that guided them forward. Gary joked once or twice, but even he grew quiet when the headlights caught snow. Fresh, unbroken, falling thicker by the minute. None of them had planned for this. They were dressed for a basketball game, not a mountain storm. Still, they drove on, trusting that the road would bend back toward home. Somewhere past the Oroville cutoff, the pavement ended. The Montego's tires crunched over gravel, then ice. Pines rose tall on either side, their shapes like black giants in the mist. The radio turned to static. Ted leaned forward, asking if they should turn back, but Jack said the engine was fine. Just a little farther, he told them. They never reached the next town. The forest swallowed the sound of the motor, and beyond that point, history loses their trail. They found the car days later, deep in the Plumas National Forest, a place none of them should have been. Jack's white Mercury Montego sat perfectly parked on a narrow snow-covered trail, 40 miles from Chico, far off any main road. The doors were unlocked, one window slightly rolled down. Inside, the seats were clean, maps folded neatly in the glove box, candy wrappers on the floor. The keys were gone, but the engine worked perfectly when tested. There was no sign of struggle, no footprints in the snow leading away. Nothing but silence. It was as if the boys had simply stepped out into the freezing night and vanished. The search teams were baffled. How could they have reached this altitude with no snow gear? No reason to be here. The tires had dug slightly into the snow, but not enough to trap them. They could have turned back easily, but they didn't. They walked into the forest instead. leaving behind a running mystery that's haunted California for nearly half a century. The search started with hope and ended in confusion. Hundreds of volunteers, police, and forest rangers spread through the Plumas Mountains, combing every ridge and frozen path. Helicopters circled above, their blades cutting through clouds of falling snow. They called the boys names, but the forest gave no answer. For weeks, searchers battled cold winds and blinding fog. Footprints would appear, then vanish under new snow. The car was easy to find. The men were not. Some locals claimed they saw strange lights in the forest that night. Others swore they heard shouting carried by the wind. Search dogs picked up faint scents that led nowhere. Food, clothes, anything that could keep a man alive. Nothing was found. It was as if the woods had swallowed them whole. Families prayed at home, clinging to the thought that maybe the five had found shelter somewhere. But deep down, everyone knew. The mountain doesn't give back what it takes. It was late spring when they found the cabin, a small ranger shelter buried deep in the woods, 20 miles from where the car had been left. Snow had begun to melt, revealing what winter had hidden. Inside that cabin, they found Ted Wire. He was lying on a cot, wrapped in blankets, his body thin and still. The table beside him held half-eaten cans of food, matches, and a broken flashlight. The cabin had enough supplies to keep all five alive for months, but Ted was the only one there. The firewood was untouched. It looked as if he'd waited, maybe for help, maybe for the others, until the cold finally took him. His beard had grown long. He'd survived weeks longer than anyone expected. Outside, in the melting snow, searchers found scraps of clothing, bones, and tracks leading toward the trees. It was no longer a rescue mission. It had become a mystery buried under frost and silence. A few days after Ted was found, searchers pushed deeper into the forest. As the snow melted, the mountain began to give up its secrets. Near a small stream, they found the remains of Madruga and Sterling, side by side, half buried in ice. Their bodies showed no violence, only the slow cruelty of cold. Weeks later, two more discoveries: Gary Mathias's shoes near the riverbank and fragments of bone believed to belong to Jack Hewitt scattered in the thawing snow. No sign of Gary himself was ever found. 5 men went into those mountains. 4 were found. 1 vanished forever. No one knows why they drove that far, why they left the car, or how they missed the warmth of that cabin. It's as if something called them deeper into the forest, something they couldn't resist. The newspapers called it America's Dyatlov Pass. But for their families, it was no legend. It was a heartbreak that never thawed. When the search ended, the questions began. Why had the boys driven 40 miles into the mountains? The car wasn't stuck, the engine worked fine. So why leave it behind? Investigators combed through every clue. Some said they panicked after getting lost in the fog. Others believed they were chased, maybe by someone they met at the game. A few even whispered about something stranger. Lights in the forest that night, sounds no one could explain. Gary Mathias's disappearance kept the mystery alive. His shoes found, but not his body. Some thought he survived and vanished into another life. Others believed the forest took him too. For the families, none of it mattered. Theories didn't bring their sons home. To them, the truth was simple and unbearable. 5 friends went out for a basketball game and never came back. The rest, they said, was just noise carried by the wind. Decades have passed, yet the Yuba County Five remain a riddle carved into the heart of America's wilderness. The snow melted, the roads changed, but that mountain still stands, silent, indifferent, holding its secrets close. Some say it was madness, others claim it was mercy, and a few still whisper about something not human at all. Every year, hikers leave flowers near the place where their bodies were found, hoping the wind carries a prayer they never got to say. Families grew old waiting for answers that never came. Gary Mathias's name lingers on, a ghost in police files and restless minds. Maybe he survived, maybe he didn't. What happened that February night? Only the mountain knows. And maybe that's the cruelest truth of all. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They just echo, softly, through the trees, reminding us how fragile we really are when the dark comes down.